Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we say it's a very, very good afternoon. Welcome to Melbourne Career Expo 2024 Day 2. You guys will rock. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another presentation very, very soon, and it's how to ask for a promotion or a pay rise. How do we get one of those? Well, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that is proudly presented by Sue Ellson, and she is a career practitioner. She'll be up here next. I need a pay rise. Good luck with that.
Hi everyone, and welcome to how to ask for a promotion or a pay rise. I figured this would be a very important topic given that there's a cost of living crisis and a lot of people are very concerned about how much they're being paid. But I think it's also important to remember that there's a few techniques that you can use to actually ask for this pay rise. Hello, change slide. All right, so just to give you a tiny bit of background on my experience, I started my career at Westpac in Adelaide. I worked in the bank for 11 years before I moved to Melbourne, and I basically haven't had a real job since. So I've done a lot of different things over many years, and I've had to ask for what I'm worth. And I have also done a lot of voluntary work. So today is a voluntary presentation, and the Career Development Association of Australia, I'm part of their stand, and we're all here on a voluntary basis to help you with your careers. So I'm going to talk to when you can ask for a pay rise, what you need to deliver, what you need to prepare, how you can pitch your request, and I can also answer any questions. And the audio guy says I can stay here as long as I like, because originally I was only going to be on here for half an hour. So if you've got lots of questions, I can answer them. And whoever asks the best question, I'm going to give a copy of my book. I've written 5 books, but this one is where I believe the future of work's going, where we don't have a job, we have work. So that's coming next. All right, if you would like a copy of these slides and any of the other slides from today's presentations that I'm doing, you can just scan this QR code, and what it will do is send me an email, and then you'll be able to get the slides. This QR code will be on all the other slides as well, in case you miss out. So, when you can ask. Now, you might start a job and think, I'm not being paid enough, and you've been there 6 hours. Well, I'm suggesting you might need to wait about 6 months before you ask for a pay rise. So a lot of people think that, particularly if they've just come out of university, that they've done all this study over all these years and they should be able to get paid what they're worth. Well, it's a cruel, hard world out there, and we all need to get some experience first. But if you're doing really well in your job and you're demonstrating that you're doing a lot of things for the organisation, then you can definitely start the process. One of the most logical times to ask is at your annual performance review. So every 12 months, you'll probably sit down with the manager and talk about what you've been doing in your role, and you will have that opportunity to discuss what you've contributed. And what you need to highlight is anything significant or major that you've contributed during that time. So you might have started a project, you might have found a better way to do things, you might have launched a new idea, you might have collaborated with another team and got something happening. They're all great things. But at the end of the day, an employer has to make money, otherwise they don't exist. So if you want a $1,000 pay rise per year, you have to demonstrate to your employer how you've increased their revenue by $3,000 to $7,000 as a ballpark figure. Now, obviously, I could have lots of arguments where people say, but I work for a not-for-profit organisation and so on, and obviously it's not measured on profit. But if you are uncertain about what you should be paid, you can look at the myfuture.edu.au website, and for every job it will give you salary ranges for those jobs. So you can try and make sure that the salary you're getting is in alignment with what other people in that same sort of role are doing. You may also have been asked to increase your productivity and start using artificial intelligence. Any of you started using ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot yet in your jobs? Yes, great. So what can happen is that can improve your efficiency. And I went to an event recently, and it was for a very large consulting firm, and they have spent a fortune on technology. And they might get a job in for their clients, and it might require 10 full-time equivalent staff to do it. But thanks to all this money they've spent on technology, now they may only need 3 full-time equivalent staff members, but they still charge the job out as if it was 10 full-time equivalent people. So although you may not have increased the income to the organisation, if you're using artificial intelligence and if you improve the productivity in your role, then you could potentially ask for a promotion or a pay rise. This concept is called the digital full-time equivalent. So if you're now able, using that AI, to do the work of 3 people instead of just 1, then obviously there's been a productivity increase, and that could be helpful. You could also ask for a promotion or a pay rise because you just haven't asked for one before. There are so many people who forget to ask. And why don't you ask? It sounds like a simple thing just to say, look, I've been here for 3 years and there's lots that I could add. So yeah, why not ask for one? You could also look at some skills that you could develop that could improve you in the job. And you could do these in your own time and bring those to the role. And you could also make sure that the decision makers know what you've been doing recently. So do they know that you've improved productivity? Do they know that you've done the training? Have you told them what you're doing? Have you told them about the extra hour you spent on the weekend trying to nut something out? If your employer doesn't know about this, they may not realise your value. There is a lot more that you can read on this blog about the digital full-time equivalent and also about embracing new changes in the workplace. So that's when you can ask. The next part is, what do you need to deliver? So indisputable written proof. I have a client who said her boss will not listen to anything except facts. And so what she's had to do is prepare a list of all the results that have actually been achieved. So give examples, and it's not just numbers and statistics. It could be maybe you've got some feedback from a fantastic client. Maybe somebody else has come along and recognised your efforts. Maybe you've been able to develop a new initiative with a key stakeholder. There could be any sorts of things that you can put together. Look for cost savings. Another client actually found that somebody was embezzling money. They never took their holidays, and they were actually disguising the fact that they were taking money out of the business. And so it could be a cost saving that you've recognised and put that up. You can also look at the Fair Work website, and that will tell you about what the market rates are in your industry. So it could be that you are under an award and you need to make sure that that's current as well. If you've got a job description, when you have that performance review, you might be able to match up what you're actually doing with the performance review. So during COVID, one of my clients, her whole job changed because it was at a museum and they couldn't have people come to the museum. So they had to change everything to virtual. So none of that was on her job description. So she had to prepare a full summary of what she was now doing in the job that was completely different to what she was originally hired for. And also think about not just money is the main thing that you could get. Maybe there's some other things that you can negotiate. Maybe you can get some more leave. more flexible hours. Maybe you could work a split shift. Maybe you could get an e-tag or a public transport pass. Maybe you could get salary sacrificing, superannuation hire. There's all sorts of other options that would be a tax deduction for the business, but ultimately result in more value into your income. You may also have insights and suggestions for the future. So particularly if you've got experience from other organisations and you come into this organisation, you might be able to say, well, I saw this working over there, that could work over here, so maybe that's another way that we can get better value out of what we do here. And also, you need to be able to verify that other people have seen your efforts too. So maybe on LinkedIn, you've got some recommendations that people have written, or you've asked them to write recommendations. Don't forget, you can also write recommendations for other people, and that may also be helpful. Get some endorsements, prepare some reports with some actual data, that could be helpful too. And also think about how you've got collaborators, supporters, and advocates. So I've got a number of people who love what I do, and then they recommend me to them, to people they know, and they're very, very helpful. Or maybe you've got other people you work with, and between the two of you, you've come up with better ways to do things. And also, keep records of any additional professional development or training that you do. Now, I all know that we're micro-learning as we scroll through TikTok or YouTube watching videos for hours on end, but maybe there's some additional training that you've done. If you've used LinkedIn Learning with your local library card, you can get access to it for free, and that way you can do some extra qualifications and have those on your LinkedIn profile, but also ask for a promotion or a pay rise. Next one. Now, once you understand that this is all the evidence you've got to collect, how can you prepare it and get it ready for that difficult conversation to ask for your promotion or pay rise? So firstly, if you have recorded everything you've done in your career on your LinkedIn profile, anybody can look at it at any time. So if you're asking for a promotion but you haven't updated your LinkedIn profile in 3 years, that's not going to go down too well. Anybody doing their due diligence is going to look at that and say, not so much great stuff here. Maybe in the internal database of the organisation, you haven't updated your records either. So when I first started out in my career, the career development plan was done by the organisation. So they already knew all this stuff that I had done. But nowadays, we've got to manage a lot of this ourselves. And so if you haven't touched your LinkedIn profile or connected with anybody or maintained relationships, it could be difficult to make that happen. So when you put your tasks on there, put them on in present tense, even if it's for a past role, and any of your achievements, put them in past tense because they've been completed. In your skills, you can list skills in the About section of your LinkedIn profile, in your Experience section, in your licenses and certifications, and in your projects. So all of those sections allow you to add in the details of your skills, and you really need to build the size of your network. So the more people you're connected to, the more people know about what you have to offer. Now, you don't want to lose your job and try and connect with everybody on the last day. That's not a good thing. So everybody you meet in your job, make sure you're connected with them on LinkedIn and they can see what you're doing there as well. Also, look at your old performance reviews and think about, well, what have I achieved since I had my last performance review 3 years ago? Maybe there's something really great. But also, I wouldn't just rely on asking your current employer for a new job or a pay rise. Maybe you need to have some other backup plans in place. So other people in the industry who know about you, your skills, and the value that you have to offer. Micro-credentials, as I mentioned, you can do your LinkedIn learning things, but make sure they've all been added onto your LinkedIn profile. And then also consider getting some coaching, mentoring, supervision, some extra peer support, because maybe you don't have the courage to ask for a promotion or a pay rise, and getting their beliefs on what's reasonable could be helpful to you as well. Also, reverse mentoring is helpful. When a younger person works with an older person, that can be another way to sort of remind you of the skills that you have that you can talk about that are worth a promotion or a pay rise. You also need to be reasonably proactive and take the lead on things. Now, that doesn't mean just coming in and running roughshod over everybody else in the organisation, but planting seeds and encouraging others. And some of the best leaders I've ever met are those who've helped other people get on in their career. So don't underestimate the value of supporting your colleagues and also advocating for them. So one person I knew was in their 20s and wanted to be an electrician. And most people who do the apprentice electrician are under the age of 20. But this person wasn't too comfortable about asking his employer to give him an apprenticeship. But what happened was his colleagues loved his work so much, they asked his employer to give him an apprenticeship, and he got it. So if you don't feel comfortable asking for it yourself, you could get somebody else to advocate for you, and that could help you as well. Now, this next one is a little bit controversial. Some of you may have heard about the idea of the gender pay gap and the fact that if an organisation has over a certain number of revenue or staff, that they have to report on their gender pay gap to the Australian government. And a precursor to that is getting their organisation to do an audit. So this is where they go through all the people in the organisation and their titles and their salaries, and they report that to the government. So there is a resource on the WGEA website that helps an organisation do that gender pay gap. So particularly if you're a woman, you could find out that there's things that they're doing there that mean not everybody is being paid equally for the same job. So you could perhaps encourage that to happen. On that website, they also have a course that you can do called How to Have Difficult Conversations, because sometimes it's really hard to ask for more money or to ask for something to change. So I also encourage you to check out that little course because that could also help you ask for a promotion or a pay rise. The final thing is, it's now that you've got all this evidence and you've worked out all the strategies, you've actually got to pitch your request and ask. So you need to be fully prepared and make sure you've got some genuine self-analysis. Don't just say, oh, I'm so fabulous, but have the evidence to support it. But also be prepared that the person doesn't necessarily want to pay you extra money just because you've given them all this evidence. So if it gets to the point where you really feel that you're being undervalued, then maybe it's time to also have your fingers out there in the network asking around to find out what other opportunities are available so that you don't feel like this is the only way I'm going to get more money. Now, I mentioned earlier in one of my presentations, there's a person I know who has what I would describe as golden handcuffs around their wrists. They don't like the job, they don't like the people they're working with, but they're being paid well. So they're not prepared to leave because they don't want to lose the money, but at the same time, they don't like the job where they are. So that's also a bit of a problem because it means that they're never planning ahead for that next role because they're too comfortable with the cash that's coming in now. So remember, it's not just about the cash. Sometimes we need the challenge, we need the variety, we need a different manager, we need a different workplace. So keep that in mind as well. It is better if you ask for this meeting in advance, so you don't just rock up and say, here I am with all my facts and give me a pay rise. You know, let the manager know that this is what you'd like to talk about and give them some time. And hopefully it'll be quiet, confidential, not rushed, not at the end of the day of a bad week. That would be a difficult time to ask for a promotion or a pay rise. And make sure that you've clarified your current role. So for that person who was working in the museum, their job had completely changed. And so there really needed to be a hard conversation about well, what is my role now, and what should I be paid for all these extra things that I'm now doing because we couldn't have visitors to the museum. But you do need to be polite and respectful. And I had a conversation with one of my clients recently, and I was really given the runaround, and I was made to wait a week and a half for an answer that I really should have had the next day. And it was very difficult for me not to be angry about that, because, you know, I just had to wait. But even when they did finally give me the answer, I was still polite, because we need to maintain these relationships. So, you know, I did vent to a number of friends, I will admit that, but it is important to try and maintain these relationships. You can then discuss the summary of all of the things that you've talked about, and then you could even describe what you could improve yourself. So maybe you're aware that there's some things that you could still do to improve, and you need to have an open conversation. So you could start by asking them, what do you think would be reasonable given that all this has changed, rather than just saying, here's what I think, and giving them, you know, a list of demands. Ask them open questions to clarify some of the expectations and the experiences and the results, and also make sure that if it doesn't go the way you'd like, you set up a time to follow up and review it. So maybe this conversation didn't lead to the promotion or the pay rise, but you've at least, you know, passed on some more information, given them some facts, and they've now got an opportunity to explore that more. Set the time for that follow-up meeting, and then if you need to, gather any additional information or complete anything else and meet to confirm and get those final details in writing. Because sometimes you can have a conversation, they say, oh yeah, we'll do that, and then it never happens. So it's really good to get it in writing. It doesn't need to be signed as statutory declaration and put, you know, official document, but at least an email would be good to clarify those new things. And there's a few more things on that link there as well. So they're the steps that I recommend for asking for a promotion or a pay rise. I will be opening for questions shortly. And there's some additional resources that you can check out here on the My Future website. You can see all those salary amounts. That could be very helpful to you. On the Victorian Government's Finding a Job Guide, that is also useful. Jobs Victoria has some personalised support that you can access. And the Career Development Association, which is over there, we're doing resume checks and career checks, but you can also check out the CDAA website and speak to a career practitioner as well. There are also things called employee assistance programs. So 50% of Australians in organisations have access to one of these, but less than 5% of people actually use it. So if you do have access to an employee assistance program, it's worth finding out what more support you might be able to get through that. And if you do lose your job, you can quite often get access to outplacement services. So those outplacement services can be very helpful in giving you extra advice and support. And some recruiters, if they've been in the role for at least 3 years and they specialise in a particular type of job, they're usually always looking for candidates in that category. So you could try approaching them. And also there's local community and council programs as well. Beware of advice from family and friends, because that often comes from their experience. It's not necessarily professional advice. So accept all the encouragement, definitely go with that, but don't assume that they have the only way to give you advice on this. And also make sure that if you are going for that next job, that you use an applicant tracking system friendly resume so that it can be read and you can get the best opportunities. I have also run a whole bunch of LinkedIn Insight webinars that you can access for free on my sueellson.com website. And the next one's coming up on the 14th of August. And these are the 3 presentations I did today. There's the 3 ones I did last year. And you can check out all the slides for all of those presentations. And you can also watch the video recordings of them as well. And I'd always love to hear what's been most helpful to you, and I welcome Google reviews. So if you could just go back to the slide which had the email on it and the QR code. It was near the beginning. That one, thank you. So now I'll answer any questions on how to ask for a promotion or a pay rise, or anything to do with careers actually. I'm more than happy to answer any other questions. And don't forget, I've got a book to give away to somebody who does ask a good question. You have to come up close, I can't hear you. Yeah. So the question is, you know, the only way to sometimes get a promotion or a pay rise is when you change organisations rather than when you're within an organisation. So that's why I'm really encouraging you to be much more strategic when you're in the organisation. You shouldn't have to change organisations to be able to ask for it. You know, that's my personal belief. So really encourage you to either A, do assertiveness training so that you feel more comfortable asking questions, or B, doing that little course that says how to have difficult conversations. Because the first time you have it, it's really nerve-wracking and it's really scary. But why should you have to upend your whole life just to get, you know, a better job, particularly if you like working where you are now? So yeah, definitely it's really good to develop the skills so that you can have those difficult conversations. It will help you in all aspects of your life, you know, as well, not just for a promotion. Yeah, good question. Any others? All good? All right, well, thank you for coming to the Melbourne Career Expo. I'll be back over at the CDAA stand along with my other volunteer members, and we look forward to being able to help you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the Melbourne Career Expo. Thank you. Oh.